وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ومن يهاجر في سبيل الله يجد في الأرض مراغما كثيرا وسعة. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The second in honor of Ammar al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When one examines the events leading up to the tragedy of Karbala, one finds a migration taking place involving a number of cities, namely Medina, Mecca and Karbala. And this therefore highlights to us the importance of migration in Islamic thought and the importance of migration in religious thought in general. And the idea that migration was seen within these journeys as key to the survival of the religion of Islam. And therefore one notices that migration is an act which is both spiritual as well as physical. An act which is viewed as being religious as well as sociological. Religious in the sense that many verses of the holy books constantly discuss the idea of migration taking place within the lives of human beings. And sociological in the sense that when you look in the society around you, many human beings have been affected by migrations either directly or indirectly, in the sense that either we are migrants, or we are the sons of migrants, or we know people who have migrated directly. And therefore one notices that migration is embedded within creation as a whole. That it's not only the human being who recognizes that migration is key to their survival, but also other creations of God recognize that without migration, their species does not exist anymore, or ceases to exist. As an example, when one looks at the animal kingdom, one finds that there are a number of animals which find migration as being incumbent upon them. That without migration, they feel that there could be a danger to their existence and therefore a danger to their future. As an example, when one looks at the world of birds, one will find a bird like the swallow in the summertime breeding, but in the wintertime migrating possibly towards a climate which is of a better habitat than the climate which it was breeding in. For it recognizes that in the summer, while it is able to breed, in the winter it may go towards a hotter climate, or a climate which is safer for it, or a climate which is better for its existence. Likewise, you may find a bird like a partridge making a migration of only 1 kilometer. Yet that 1 kilometer is key to the survival of that bird. Therefore, we find that migration is seen as embedded in not only the human being, but also within the animal kingdom. And that's why there are a number of reasons why a person may migrate from one place to another. For example, amongst the reasons somebody may migrate from one place to another is an economic reason. Sometimes you find people in the world who try and build for themselves a business in the area in which they are living. However much they try, it doesn't work. Every profit-making scheme they try seems to fail, or the environment at the time doesn't help them or is not conducive to their economic progress. And therefore you may find that they move from one place to another in order that economically they become more successful. That's one reason. A second reason is political, in the idea that there are people in history who faced dictators who did not allow them to live in the land in which they were brought up. Be it those who migrated from Idi Amin's Africa, or be it those who migrated from Saddam's Iraq, or be it those who migrated in Europe in the earliest part of the 20th century. you will find that there are those who migrate because the climate where they are living is not conducive for them to express their opinion or to follow the ideology on which they've been brought up. Likewise, a third reason why a person may migrate from one city to another or from one country to another is to gain more knowledge. And this is seen as being general throughout human existence, that many people would go from one college to another university and migrate quite a distance in order that they are able to gain a certain amount of knowledge, because they recognize that through migration, not only do they develop their own personality, but that they develop their whole structure in terms of their life in which they live. You may find people leaving Canada to go and study in America, or people leaving Africa to go and study in England, or you may find people, for example, leaving the Middle East to come to Europe. Many may migrate in order to gain knowledge, and that's why you find that this type of migration can be of two types. There are people who migrate to gain knowledge for themselves. They have a vision of the future which they want to fulfill. Whereas there are people who migrate because the knowledge they want to gain, they want to use it to serve the religion of God. Therefore you find, for example, in the world today, that many of the seminaries which teach the religion of Islam are seminaries which are filled with students who have migrated. Students who have left their homeland in order not only to gain knowledge, but also to ensure that that knowledge serves the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why many of the great scholars in Islamic history, from all the different schools in Islam, had to migrate from city to city, country to country, before they were able to achieve that which they wanted. People like Imam al-Baladhuri, Imam al-Tabari, Imam Ibn al-Athir, Imam al-Bukhari, Shaykh al-Kulayni, Shaykh al-Saduq, Shaykh al-Tusi, Shaykh al-Mufid. All of these scholars had to migrate from city to city, be it from Egypt to Iraq, from Iraq to Hijaz, from Hijaz towards Iran. They had to migrate in order that they were gaining knowledge. But their migration, as it is termed in the Arabic language, hijrah, was done fi sabilillah. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, whenever discussing the term hijrah, He brings alongside it the term fi sabilillah. وَمَن يُهَاجِرُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Because there are those who migrate for their own selfish individual purposes. There are those who migrate, no, not selfishly, but they want to gain more. Then there are a group of people who migrate in order that a higher purpose is achieved. Not just their own goals, but the goal which is higher. As an example, when you look at the Islamic seminary in Najaf, you find that the name which is often associated with it is Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari. May Allah bless his soul. And Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari originally was not from Iraq. Originally he was from Iran. Yet he recognized that remaining in Iran was a position of being stagnant. Whereas the human being has a land which is vast enough for them to go and realize their wishes and fulfill the experiences that they want to. That's why you find his book, Al-Makasib, has to be studied before a person can reach the highest level of knowledge. Until today, many students in the seminaries have to study Kitab al-Makasib in order that they understand the very basics of Islamic law. And you find his students highlight to us just how much his migration was not only spiritual, it was physical at the same time. Both components were there. One of his students narrates, he says, one night in my dream, I saw a satanic figure in front of me with this very long chain. He said, when I looked at him, I said, who's this chain for? He said, the figure looked at me and said, I tried to catch your teacher last night, but it didn't work. He said, the next day when I woke up, I went towards Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari and I said to him, I saw this dream and I'd like your interpretation. He said, what's the dream? He said, in my dream, I saw a satanic figure who had this long chain. And I asked him, what was this chain for? And he said, I tried to catch your teacher last night, but it didn't work. He said, the dream is correct and it's happened to me. I said, what do you mean? He said, my wife told me that we were having guests coming towards the house. But she said that we had nothing to offer them. Therefore, he said, I thought to myself that considering I have some of the treasury which belongs to the 12th Imam, I could use some of what I have from the treasury, go and buy some products, and then come back, I will serve the guests, and then I'll put the money in later on. He said, then I thought to myself, but I am a servant of the Imam. How could I do something which has not been permitted by me? Therefore he said, that's the way I broke the chain of shaitan. Shaitan tried to catch me, but I walked away from it. And so here you find how the migration of Shaykh Murtada al-Ansari for knowledge wasn't just a physical migration. No, spiritually that migration helped him. Therefore, in Islamic thought, the word migration is translated with the word hijrah. And there are three types of migrations which the scholars discuss in Islam. Two of them are spiritual, one of them is physical. And the one that is physical will lead us to the discussion of the 10th of Muharram. But the first two migrations which the scholars discuss within the idea of migration are spiritual. What are they? Let us discuss them and then go on to the physical. The first type of migration in Islamic thought which is spiritual is the migration from disbelief to belief. From kufr to iman. Because we know in the world that is around us, there are many who are disbelievers, in the sense that there are many who do not necessarily believe in the teachings of the religion of Islam. There are many who may not have heard of the teachings, and there are many who may not have accepted. The first type of migration in Islamic thought is the migration when you move from disbelief to belief. What we term today as reverts to Islam. Because you know, many of us call those who come from a different ideology towards Islam, we call them converts. That's not, of course, the right word. The right word is revert, because that person has reverted to his original fitrah which Allah created him with. And you find that this journey is seen as an impeccable journey. Why? Because when a person leaves disbelief and migrates towards belief, he hasn't done it through blind faith. He hasn't done it because his parents have forced him. He hasn't done it because the culture may look down at him. He's done it, or she's done it, because they have researched consistently the teachings of that religion. When you hear of reverts such as Malcolm X, or you hear of a revert such as Yusuf Islam, they did not research and then come to a fickle conclusion. No, they researched throughout their lives until they migrated from one belief to another. And that's why you find that many times the revert towards Islam is more religious than the one born in Islam. The one who reverts is sometimes more religious than the one born in. Why? Because the one born into Islam didn't go through a migration. From the day they opened their eyes, their parents taught them there is no God but God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. They were taught that there are 5 prayers and that there is fasting in the holy month. Whereas the one who migrates from disbelief towards belief is someone who had to read through the books, someone who in some cases had to play devil's advocate, and someone who in some cases had to lose friends and family. That never think that when someone reverts to the religion of Islam, it was an easy migration. On the contrary, it's the most difficult of migration. And it bewilders me why sometimes in our communities, we show little respect towards those who have left everything to come towards Islam. In many cases, you find them sit in our communities, yet you don't find many people coming up to them, acknowledging their presence, asking if they need any help. Those reverts towards the religion of Islam, their migration is something quite outstanding. That's why I remember Bilal al-Habashi, may Allah bless his soul. Bilal al-Habashi originally was one of the highest disbelievers in Arabia. Do you know in which way? Bilal, who's his mother? His mother was the niece of Abraha, the person who tried to destroy the Kaaba. You know Surah Al-Fil? أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Abraha, who tried to destroy the Kaaba, on his way to destroying the Kaaba, who was with him? His niece. His niece unfortunately got lost. When she got lost, she was caught by one of the Arabian tribes, and she ended up being a slave girl within that tribe. She married a man by the name of Rabah. Rabah gave birth, his wife gave birth to a son by the name of Bilal. Bilal was so highly valued in his tribe that the head of his tribe, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, gave him the keys to the temple of idols. Can you imagine today when we have someone who has the keys to the mosque? That person who has keys to the mosque is someone who is respected. Bilal used to have the keys for what? He used to have the keys which used to open the idol's temple. And so he would go there, he'd open, yet he'd constantly ponder that surely this which I believe in, these idols, they cannot harm me, nor can they benefit me. Why am I following this belief? Yet he couldn't get out, he couldn't migrate. until he heard of a prophet called Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli. Until he heard of a prophet called Muhammad. When he heard of this prophet, he asked, what are his teachings? When he asked, what are his teachings? They said to him that his teachings are that black and white, there is no differentiation. Everybody is equal before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only difference is taqwa, that there is a day of judgment when injustice and tyranny will be trialed in a court, and that those who are just are rewarded, those who are unjust will be punished. You suddenly found him going towards Rasulullah. You found him undertaking a spiritual migration. Slowly this Bilal, who was within idol worship, would go and meet Rasulullah. Umayyah ibn Khalaf was his master. And Umayyah ibn Khalaf was seen as one of the most famous heads of tribes in Arabia. In those days, they used to have a parliament. If you wanted to be member of that parliament, there was one condition. None of your tribe must be a Muslim or have converted to Islam. When the news came to Umayyah, Umayyah was on his way to parliament one day. As he was entering, he was saying, I want to kill Muhammad and finish his message. Someone said to him, where do you want to express this idea? He said, in parliament. They said to him, you cannot enter the parliament. He said, why? The reply came, because a member of your own people is the one who has joined Muhammad. He said, whom? They said to him, Bilal. He replied, Bilal, the one I brought up, the one I gave the keys to the temple, has gone towards the message of Muhammad. They said, yes. The torture that Bilal went through in those years under Umayyah bin Khalaf was the most extreme torture you will ever find. Torture that you cannot wish for any human being. To the extent that Amr ibn al-As, when he used to walk past, used to say to the fellow Arabian tribal leaders, leave this man alone now. Haven't you tortured him enough? And when Amr ibn al-As in those days felt that that was enough, you can imagine the torture. The torture must have been severe, until eventually Abu Bakr came forward. He bought out Bilal. He bought him from slavery. And then this Bilal later on emerged in which position? He emerged as the mu'adhin of Rasulullah, the one who recited the adhan. Can you imagine the migration that's taken place? Originally, you were opening the keys to shirk. Now you are opening the keys to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That whole journey that had taken place, that when he would recite adhan, he would say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Some people came to Rasulullah, they said, Ya Rasulullah, you have nobody better to recite? In the sense that he can't even pronounce the sheen. Rasulullah replied, the scene of Bilal is sheen in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That sincerity that was there was something unreal. And sometimes you find even the followers of Ahlul Bayt ask the question, how loyal was Bilal to Al Muhammad after the death of Rasulullah? Well, the fact that he recited adhan only once after the death of Rasulullah should tell you. Because this Bilal spoke out after what happened after the death of Rasulullah, to the extent that the second Khalifa once came to him and said, Bilal, you will not give allegiance to the first Khalifa when he was the one who freed you. To which he replied, if he freed me for his own sake, then I will come and serve him. If he freed me for the sake of Allah, then leave it for Allah to decide. But if he freed me so I go against the decision of Rasulullah, that I will never do. And that's why he was exiled to Syria. And today in Bab al-Saghir in Syria, for those of you who have been, will know that he is buried there. Therefore, the first migration in Islam is spiritual, from kufr to iman. The second migration in Islam is from being a disobedient Muslim to an obedient Muslim. Again, it's spiritual. In which way? In the sense that there are many Muslims in the world today who are Muslims in the terms that they've recited the kalima, but they are sinful Muslims. Some of them may lie, others may steal, others may constantly backbite, others may have committed adultery, others, for example, may have gone even further. And therefore you find that the second migration in Islam is a migration when you move from being disobedient to Allah to being someone who is obedient to every wish of Allah. Because understand one thing, you find some people who come forward and say, I'm not really a major sinner. I do a few minor sins, but nothing major. Amir al-Mu'mineen used to say, the biggest sin is the one you think is a small one. In the sense that whenever you want to know if something is a small sin or a big, The biggest sin is the one you think is a small one. You'll find some Muslims who are sinners, not in front of their parents, not in front of the community, but when they leave the community. Whereas you find our fourth Imam, when he was asked, where can you sin? He replied, sin in the place where Allah cannot see you. Is there such a place? Can you find a place where Allah cannot see you? No. Therefore, when a person comes forward and sins, this is a lack of understanding of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we say in Dua Iftitah, إِنَّكَ تَدْعُونِي فَأُوَلِّ عَنْكَ وَتَتَحَبَّبُ إِلَيَّ فَأَتَبَغَضُ مِنْكَ. You invite me towards you and I walk away from you. You show mercy towards me and I do not show but vengeance back towards you. And you find that this journey is of the utmost importance. Why? Because there are many Muslims who may come for these 10, 12 nights of Muharram, and in these 10, 12 nights, suddenly you find an obedience that is immaculate. As soon as the 12th night is over, it's back to normal. Whereas the reality is that a person should use the month of Muharram as a month where they migrate from being a disobedient Muslim to being obedient, because it's a blessing to be born in the religion of Islam. When you look at that convert, look at the migration of that convert. He lost family and friends. He became a revert in his original nature. Whereas you yourself, when you are born with the blessing of Islam, why then neglect that which Allah has given you? And know one thing, that the migration, this one, the doors of Tawbah never close. I remember Ali ibn Abu Hamza came towards Imam al-Sadiq. He came towards him and he said to him, "Oh Imam, I have a friend of mine who used to serve Bani Umayyah. He's a Muslim, but he used to serve Bani Umayyah. Would you mind if he comes to see you?" Imam said, "Let him come ahead, there's no problem." When the person came, he saw Imam al-Sadiq and he said to him, "Oh Imam al-Sadiq, I have worked for Bani Umayyah for many years. I have been there by their side and supported them in everything. I wrote their letters, I collected their taxes, and all the wealth which I earned was by serving the Khulafa of Bani Umayyah." The Imam at this moment looked at him and he said, "It's a shame that if people like you didn't speak out, had you spoken out, there would be no Khilafah which oppresses the people. But when people like you work for the government, this is not something which is respectable." So the person said, "Oh Imam, I know I'm a disobedient Muslim, but I want to be one who is now obedient towards your cause." Imam replied by saying, "Will you listen to me if I tell you how to repent?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Whatever money you have earned from serving Bani Umayyah, and whichever products you have bought from that money, give them all back to their rightful owners. To the people who Bani Umayyah oppressed, give it back to each one." He said, "What if I can't find them?" He said, "Then give it away to charity. If you do this, I promise you we will intercede for you on the day of judgment." Look at the doors of mercy. So that person that hadith narrates to us, do you know what he did? He went around, he gave everything away that he earned in haram. Because there are some of us, we are Muslim, but half of our earning may be in haram. What do? You either give it back to who it belongs to, or you give it away to charity. To the extent the hadith narrates, even the clothes he was wearing at the end, after he had completed his act, he even took those clothes off and gave it back to charity. And Ali ibn Abu Hamza says, "I had to give him from my own clothes just to let him begin." He says, "When this person was dying, I was by his side. When he was dying, I looked at him and he was smiling. I said to him, 'Why are you smiling?' He said, 'Because what Ja'far al-Sadiq promised me, I can see coming towards me.'" Meaning what? Meaning the second type of migration is a migration from being a disobedient Muslim to being obedient, to following all that which the religion teaches you. The third type of migration is the physical migration. And that's the one which we need to focus on. For this physical migration, it's seen as being the most important of the migrations in Islam, known as hijrah in the Arabic language. Know that the physical migration is so important that in the books of jurisprudence, the books of fiqh, there is a whole section called hijrah and migration. If you go to your books of fiqh today, if you open them, you will find a whole section called the laws of hijrah. Why? Amongst those laws, they teach you about which type of journey is acceptable in Islam and which type of journey is not acceptable. For example, if you look at one of the laws about hijrah within these books, you will find one law says, If you know you are going on holiday somewhere, or you are migrating somewhere where your intention is to perform a haram act, a disobedient act, then it is haram on you to go on that holiday. Because there are some people, when it comes to summer break, Allahu Akbar, the places they book. As in, when you look at some of the places they book, I don't think they're going there to spread the religion of Islam in the way it should be spread. In the sense that when you look at that holiday spot, what is there other than beaches and parties? You go out to the party, you enter a club. From the club to the beach. From the beach back there. And they tell their parents, we're only going on an innocent holiday. That type of travel is not allowed. Why? Because when you know you are going on holiday somewhere and you know the intention is disobedience to Allah, then that type of holiday is rejected. You'll find it written within the laws of fiqh. Number two, within the laws of fiqh as well, you will find a statement which says, if you are in a land where you cannot practice your religion, then migrate to another land to protect your religion. Because the verse which I quoted at the beginning of my lecture is from a series of verses in Surah 4 of the Quran, from verse 97 to 101. These verses were revealed around the time of Badr. Why? Because these verses were referring to those Muslims who were living in Mecca and they did not go on the hijrah with Rasulullah to Medina. Rasulullah, when he went on the hijrah, he said to the Muslims, come with me. There is a place we can go where we can practice our religion properly. There is a place we can go which is more welcoming. There were a group of Muslims who stayed in Mecca. They said, no, oh Muhammad, the only way we'll believe you're a prophet is if you achieve victory in Mecca. Otherwise, we won't travel anywhere. People like Dhil Jawshan ibn Dhabab came to Rasulullah and said to him that you are a prophet and I accept. I haven't seen you achieve victory here and I will not leave this place. If you achieve victory in Mecca, I believe in you as a prophet. If you do not achieve victory in Mecca, then I'm sorry, I don't believe in you or your companions. Do you know what the Quran said to these people? Quite stunning verses in the Quran. Do you know where the Quran takes you? It fast forwards you to the angel of death when he meets these people. So just in case you're not sure how the angel of death would speak to you, if you are in a country where you're not practicing your religion, the Quran says, do you know what the angel of death? الَّذِينَ تَتَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالُوا فِيمَ كُنْتُمْ قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةٌ فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا. When they come towards those who they seize their souls, they say to them, in which state were you? They said, we were weak in the earth. That's why we weren't religious. The reply is, was Allah's earth not vast enough for you to go and travel? That I find it surprising, some people saying, I'm not religious. Why? Because the country I'm in is not religious. So there's no other country for you to go and travel? Are there religious countries in the world or no? Yes, there are. You can't go and travel there? And mind you, on this point, sometimes people imagine that when you're traveling, it means you leave a non-Muslim country to a Muslim. I tell you, some Muslim countries, people want to run away from them to protect their religion. There are some countries in the Middle East today which call themselves Muslim. When you enter, you see La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Yet as soon as you leave the airport, you wonder where Muhammad Rasulullah went. In the sense that sometimes migration is not necessarily from a non-Muslim country to a Muslim. Sometimes the non-Muslim country gives you more rights than your own Muslim country. Within the West, when we live, are we practicing the 10 nights of Muharram? Yes, we are. Are we all together gathered? Yes, we are. Do we have to perform taqiyya? No, we don't. Whereas you go to some Muslim countries in the world, try coming out with the belief of La ya li tharat al-Husayn. Try coming out with that belief. That's why Samad, the companion of our sixth Imam, Samad came towards his friends. He said to them, I am going to migrate. They said to him, where? He said, to a polytheist country. A country which commits shirk. His friends said to him, no, don't go towards that country. He said, why? They said, because you'll never practice your religion there. Go and ask Imam al-Sadiq. When he went to ask Imam al-Sadiq, listen to what Imam al-Sadiq said to him. He said to him, where do you want to go? He said, Imam, I want to leave this Muslim country and go to a polytheist country. He said to him, why? He said, because in this country, I can't even practice my religion. Every day we have to hide our beliefs. Imam al-Sadiq said, this country where you are going, are you able to spread and protect the wilayah of Muhammad and Al Muhammad? He said to him, yes. He said, then go ahead there. Because if you are able to protect our teachings, Allah will raise you as an ummah like Prophet Ibrahim on the Day of Judgment. Imagine that you can go from a Muslim country to a non-Muslim country, but according to Imam al-Sadiq, if you can practice your religion better in that country than in the one which you're living in, Allah will raise you as an ummah like Prophet Ibrahim. Because Prophet Ibrahim was one person in the middle of all the mushrikeen. Yet this one person shook the whole foundations of the mushriks. There was not a single mushrik who could come towards him, and at the end he defeated them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Kana Ibrahim ummatan. Ibrahim was an ummah, meaning what? Meaning one human being's strength in looking after their religion is like a whole ummah in one. It's not about the quantity of the people, it's about the quality of the individuals. And so you find that a physical hijrah has to be undertaken. If you cannot practice your religion, it has to be undertaken. And that's why the religion of Islam would never have survived were it not for 4 hijras which took place in history. Were it not for these 4 hijras, this religion would never have survived. Because those who did migrate recognized that although my life may be in danger, the life of this religion will remain forever. The first hijrah which meant this religion survived was the hijrah of the companions of Rasulullah when they went towards Africa. Because you know Rasulullah came to his companions. He said to them that I want you to go towards Africa. They said, where? He said, towards Abyssinia, you will find a priest by the name of Asmaha. When you go towards him, you will find he is a just man. This priest, his title was Najashi, but Asmaha was his name. This priest had a very soft heart. Do you know why? Because he saw his uncle kill his father at a young age. Then he saw his father's soldiers take vengeance on the uncle. He then thought to himself at a young age that the sight of people killing each other has hurt me. If I ever find a group of people who are being persecuted and have migrated towards me, then I'll open my doors for them. So when Ja'far al-Tayyar, Ja'far the son of Abu Talib, led a number of companions, Rasulullah said to him, this migration will save the religion. Why? Don't plant your palm trees in one area. Plant them in many, and then you will see the religion will grow. This way, Rasulullah planted his companions in Africa. And so therefore, when Ja'far came towards the priest saw Ja'far. Next to Ja'far was Amr ibn al-As, who was heading the mushrikeen. The priest looked at Amr ibn al-As. He said, what's the issue here? The reply that came was that these people who you respect, they are people who have changed the mindset of our people. They have changed the philosophy of our people. Many people now believe in a God which they cannot see. How could they believe in a God who cannot be seen when we have gods who are carved out of wood? So then the priest looked at Ja'far ibn Abu Talib. He said to him, what do you say? Ja'far ibn Abu Talib said, oh priest, we follow the prophets of God who came with revelations. We follow every prophet from Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa. We follow the prophet Jesus who's come from a virgin birth and who spoke of the prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli. Who spoke of the prophet. When the priest heard this, he said, what do you say about Jesus? He said, we say Jesus is a prophet of God and was born from a virgin birth. Straight away he put his stick on the ground. He made a line and he said, you people who have migrated towards me, I offer you sanctuary now in Abyssinia. You are safe, nobody can persecute you. Look at the mindset of Rasulullah. Rasulullah didn't keep all the eggs in one basket. Rasulullah spread them all to make sure that just in case Islam dies here, then there is an Islam growing somewhere else. And that's why you find that this priest later on became a Muslim, went through a migration himself because of that action which he had seen, because of the protection that he had given towards these people. And that's why, who's the first Muslim to be born in Africa? The husband of Sayyida Zainab, Abdullah. Abdullah ibn Ja'far, the son of Ja'far, was the man who was married to Sayyida Zainab. He is the first Muslim to be born in Africa because of the migration, number one. Number two, the second migration which saved the religion of Islam was the migration of Rasulullah from Mecca to Medina. Because they had chased him out of the place he was brought up. They didn't let him rest in that place. The place where prophethood was built, these people continuously would throw the waste of animals on him, would torture his companions, would kill his companions, put economic sanctions on him and his companions, until Rasulullah on the night of Hijrah wanted to leave Mecca to go towards Medina. Why? Not because Rasulullah didn't like Mecca. It's because he knew the key to the survival of Islam involved him migrating from Mecca to Medina. And that's why you find that before he went and migrated, the people of Medina said to him, Ya Rasulullah, we are ready for you. We will protect you. And that there is a land which is ready for you. And that's why the Quran said, وَمَن يُهَاجِرُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدُ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعًا. Whoever migrates towards Allah will find an earth which is abundant of protection and resources. The people of Medina gave him protection, and they gave him the resources to build an Islamic state. They were waiting for him to come towards them. On that night, he asked the son of Abu Talib. He said to him, would you sleep on my bed tonight? And would you bring the Fawatim, Fatima al-Zahra, Fatima bint Asad, Fatima the daughter of Zubair and Hamza and so on, would you bring them towards Medina? The reply came, Ya Rasulullah, if it involves protection of your religion, then I will do it. That's why on that night when he slept on the bed of Rasulullah, the son of Abu Talib slept on that bed because he knew that when he is selling his soul for the pleasure of Allah, the religion of Allah continues to survive. That's why the Quran revealed the verse, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَشْرِ نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. There are those who sell their souls for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He woke up, he had finished after they were about to kill him. He then took the trust back which Rasulullah owed to the people. Then he took the Fawatim towards Medina. The Islamic State was established there. The third hijrah which saved the religion of Islam was the hijrah of Amir al-Mu'mineen from Medina to Kufa. Amir al-Mu'mineen could have remained in Medina, but he knew if he moved towards Kufa, he could open a base of followers of Ahlul Bayt that would continue forever. Because when Ali ibn Abi Talib left Medina, it wasn't easy. You are leaving a land where you were brought up to go towards a land where you do not necessarily know everyone. Kufa was not older than 20 years old when he went there. He went towards that land because he recognized that hijrah towards Kufa from Medina will make this religion survive. That's why there's a beautiful narration about what he did. When he went on hijrah, he made sure the religion and the justice continued. It's narrated one day when he was walking, he saw a group of children who were sitting down. They were all playing except one child. When he saw that one child who wasn't playing, do you know what he said? When he saw that one child, he came forward and he came towards that child and he asked the children around him, why doesn't he play with you? They said, we do not know. He stays aloof from us. He then said, what's his name? The reply was Mat ad-Din. He said, sorry? He said, Mat ad-Din. Deen means religion. Mat means dead. So he's called, the religion is dead. He said, his name is Mat ad-Din. He said, yes, Mat ad-Din. Ali ibn Abi Talib thought to himself, why is there such an injustice that a child is called Mat ad-Din? As in, who would want to be named after such a concept? What he did, he said, show me where his father is. They said, his father is dead. Where's his mother? He inquired. He went towards the mother. When he went towards the mother, he came near her. He said to her, I'd like to ask you a question. Why is your son called the name that he has been given? She said his father was on a migration with 4 companions. When he was with them, he died on that journey. And he said to them, when you return, my wife is pregnant. Tell her that the child, name him Mat ad-Din. Ali ibn Abi Talib realized that this wasn't the truth. He realized that the lady was told a story which wasn't true. So do you know what he did? He went towards the 4. He said, all of you come with me. He found each one of them. He said, all of you come with me to the mosque. When he took them towards the mosque, he called out to the rest of the people. He said, whenever I say Allahu Akbar, I want the rest of you to say Allahu Akbar. So at that moment, he looked at the first one. He said, tell me, how did you kill the person who was on the journey with you? He said, sorry? He said, tell me, how did you kill the one who was on the journey with you? He said, all I did was bring the cord. He then said, look to the second one, how did you kill him? He said, I put the cord around his neck. He said to the third one, what did you do? He said, I got the weapon ready. He went to the fourth one and he said, what did you do? He said, and I went ahead and killed him. Ali ibn Abi Talib at that moment said, each one of you has to pay the blood money for the deceased. He took the money back towards the lady and then he brought the child and he said, no more is his name Mat-ad-Din. Now his name is Ash-ad-Din. Meaning what? Meaning no more is his name that the religion is dead. Now name him the religion is alive. Meaning what? Meaning when I've migrated to Kufa, I've not migrated except that I ensure justice continues in this religion. Otherwise, it's not a holiday for me. When I migrate, I am sacrificing everything to make sure the religion's principles are upheld. That's why when his son migrated from Medina to Mecca to Karbala, he migrated in order that the religion of his grandfather remained alive. Aba Abdullah would have loved to have stayed within Medina and Mecca because of the fact that Medina and Mecca were the areas where he was brought up. Medina and Mecca were those two cities where he saw his grandmother Khadija and his grandfather Rasulullah bring the message of Islam towards the people. Yet you find Rasulullah's hijrah from Mecca to Medina was from danger to safety. Whereas Aba Abdullah, when he went from Medina to Mecca to Karbala, he went from danger to danger to danger. Yet what was the aim of Aba Abdullah when he went on this journey? He says it quite beautifully when he says, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجُ أَشِرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا وَلَا ظَالِمًا وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي رَسُولَ اللَّهِ أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير بسيرة جدي وأبي علي ibn Abi Talib. He says, I have not gone on migration for fame or for glory or for vengeance. I have gone to bring justice in the ummah of my grandfather Rasulullah. I have gone to enjoin the good and forbid the evil and live my life in the same way that my grandfather and my father lived their life. Imagine you have to leave where your grandfather brought you up. Imagine you have to leave the cradle of revelation and the fragrance of prophethood. When he was in Medina, he had to migrate. Why? Because the governor of Medina was told by Yazid, you bring me the head of Hussein on a plate. Hussein does not escape. When he went towards Mecca, he himself said what? He said, if I was on the wing of an insect around the Kaaba, they would still kill me. Because one of the companions said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, why do you migrate? Why don't you perform your Hajj? He said, if I was a wing of an insect, insects around the Kaaba cannot be harmed. Whereas the grandson of Rasulullah is to be harmed. Insects in Hajj have to be respected. That when they come on your body, you cannot push them away or harm them. Whereas the grandson of the cradle of revelation was to be beheaded near that land, he decided that he had to go towards the land of Karbala. But before he went, he bid farewell to his grandfather Rasulullah. He bid farewell to that grandfather who had sacrificed everything for this religion. But he knew that he had to bid farewell to protect his sunnah. And that's why you find in the same way Aba Abdullah had to bid farewell to Rasulullah. Rasulullah many years earlier was told of Aba Abdullah's crime. He was told of Aba Abdullah's murder, of Aba Abdullah's movement. And that's why we find that the first of many times when he was told was when he was burying his wife Khadija. When he came to bury his wife Khadija, they had gone through much trials and tribulations. Yet we begin our nights by remembering the grandparents of Hussein ibn Ali. When he came to bury Khadija, the poverty had meant that the kafan was not long enough to cover the body of Khadija. This Khadija had given everything away to the religion of Islam. Rasulullah tried to place a kafan on her body. It only went halfway across her body. When he tried from the other angle, it went halfway across. Rasulullah began to cry. He turned around towards his creator and he said, Ya Allah, I am your prophet Muhammad. This is your servant Khadija. I do not have a kafan to shroud her. You know where I am going with the kafan. When he came and he said this, the reply that came was that Jibreel came down to Rasulullah. When he came down to Rasulullah, he came down with 5 kafans. It's narrated. He came towards Rasulullah. When he came to him, he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, these are 5 kafans for you. Rasulullah replied by saying to him, Ya Jibreel, tell me who the kafans are for. The reply that came from Jibreel was, Ya Rasulullah, the first kafan is for Khadija, so that now you are able to bury her when she has no shroud to cover her. He said to him, Jibreel, tell me who is the second kafan for. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, the second kafan is for you. That when you pass away, there is a shroud to cover your body. He said to him, Jibreel, tell me who the third kafan is for. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, the third kafan is for your daughter Fatima. Imagine that kafan when it covers the broken rib of Fatima al-Zahra. How hard it must have been for Ali ibn Abi Talib when he placed the shroud near the rib. He said to him, Jibreel, tell me who the fourth kafan is for. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, the fourth kafan is for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Imagine the kafan when it covered the strike of Ibn Muljam on the head of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said to him, Jibreel, tell me who the fifth kafan is for. He said to him, the fifth kafan is for your grandson Hassan. When the poison affected Imam Hassan, he began to vomit out his liver one after another. He then said to him, Jibreel, tell me where is the kafan for Abu Abdullah? He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, Allah has decided that Abu Abdullah dies without a kafan. He said to him, why? He said to him, because the soldiers of Bani Umayyah will trample on the body of Abu Abdullah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.